My name is Beth Guide. I'm with SEO 411, and we are going to start with the next part of this list, which is the technical SEO piece of the checklist. The first thing that I'm going to say is on the checklist is to make sure that you understand and can control the URLs of the page that you're building. This is an important piece of this, and it's a piece of this that continues to affect how Google perceives your site and how well things are put together. So back in the day, when you would have to upload actual files, and we're not using a content system like WordPress or something like that, you were able to put stuff together and do it in a way that you would put files in folders, somewhat similar to how you do with your own computer and how you file things. So you may have My Documents or your favorites, and you file those. Well, the perception of the search engine was that the more nested the page was, the less important it was. So they still somewhat honor that in their link, in their algorithm structure and how the URL structures are put together. And I want to talk a little bit about that because it's an interesting thought to how to do it. I will tell you, admittedly, I put everything still at the root. It's intentional on my part. Very rarely do I nest things. So what I'm talking about here, let me open my browser and I can kind of show you here a second. Let me share the screen. So I just opened the website, and the website I opened actually was my own. And if you start to look at the structure of the SEO 411 website, you will notice for the most part, everything is nested up against the root. So it says SEO411.com/ whatever the page name is. I'm calling the root anything that is to the left of the first /, which in this case is the domain name. So your domain name is always the root. And then anything after that is the structure that they're looking for. So you can do this in multiple ways, and I want to talk through this a minute with everybody because it's an important concept. And if you can get the permalink structure down, it's going to give you a real good leg up over your competition, because most people don't think about things to this level and to this degree. So when you put together your navigation, I have a list of emails of navigation that reads across the top of the website. So mine says SEO services, digital marketing, web design services, penalty recovery. Theoretically, those pages should be up against the root. So you should always structure your permalinks to honor that structure. Beyond that, when I have pages that live underneath those sections, I then keep that structure and add a second segment to it. So if I wanted to say SEO services, the first thing it would say would be SEO411.com / Houston SEO services. The next page that's underneath it that says SEO packages, you have an option, okay? Now, I am going to say, this is me old school trying to keep everything to the root. Some people would say, SEO services / SEO packages. You have a choice on that. I still think that the closer to the root, there is enough value that I try to keep everything that way, up until the point that I get to a product-based website, or something that needs a hierarchy to be able to let Google know what something is about. So I'm going to use my friends over at Trips to Italy, because this one is completely a different way to do this. And I'm going to explain to you why I went down to this level with it. So for those of you that don't know anything about Italy, Italy has 22 regions that are equal to our states. So what I did is made the URL structure honor that. So tripstoitaly.com/regions, which are the areas. And of course, my region page has all the regions on it. But then when I got to the next level of the regions, let's say I wanted to say Tuscany, which happens to be a region in Italy. I actually went as far as to go Tuscany and then nest the pages under Tuscany. Now, the reason I did that is because what I did was basically build a mini 5-page website about Tuscany underneath the main Trips to Italy website. And I did that by signaling to Google that these 5 pages are interconnected and point back to Tuscany. And only then did Tuscany point back to the main structure. Now, this may sound confusing, but if you start to look, if you go study that Trips to Italy site, you'll see a little bit about what I'm saying. This is one of the most important things. So the use of the permalinks, usually what you will hear people talk about permalinks, they'll talk about adding the keywords in the permalink, making sure it reflects the page in the permalink. I'm also going to say, I'm going to go one better and say that if you wanted to craft a supported area about something, i.e. a region in Italy, I would then proceed to nest those pages underneath. So I basically built a mini website about that topic. In a product situation, I may have /products, which lets Google know it's a product. And then I would nest all the items that are similar. So if I was selling tennis courts, it would be /tennis courts and then / the tennis court kits. Because again, keeping up with that hierarchy, again, the closer I am to the root, the better off I am. But I may need to create a join section that puts this all together. I very rarely see people that actually do this right. A lot of people just shove the URL there, think if I throw a few keywords in and move on down the road, I'm okay. This becomes that if I have limited competitors, I have limited people, I have limited topics, okay, fine. I can get away with being sloppy in my URLs and just put keywords in them. But if I actually really want to send the proper signals to Google and what is related, what is relational, how did those things hook together, and create the proper internal linking structure throughout the website, I am going to go as far as to make sure that I'm breaking these URLs down right. So again, if you looking at this Trips to Italy site, you'll see that each and every one of these areas has this same structure, which is the region name and then the main topic. Now, let me see. If you go to, let me pull up, let's see if Lombardi has it. All right, if you go to Lazio, the other thing it's not, the other thing that I did is that when I got into the cities, I actually put Rome in the Lazio region because that's where Rome is located. So I took the cities and actually nested them inside their regions. So everything that I did, I'm constantly trying to work towards keeping these things segregated in a way that they spit out in a way that Google understands. What are the regions? What are they? How does this work? What does this do? And how do I go about fixing things and having things related in a way that Google understands? It really is not as simple as just throwing a few keywords in your URL, which that's a lot to say about permalinks because I think most people don't even understand what a permalink is. So I suppose if you don't understand what a permalink is, let me explain that really quickly to you. In database language, your query strings, if you will, to create a page or to say, hey, go get this piece of information is usually done in a very messy, unorganized way. Or they are assigned ID numbers. So theoretically, it would be, SEO411.com / ID equals 135. Well, that doesn't tell Google anything. And therefore they don't know what to do with it. So it came up with a system pretty early on in the internet, if you will, in the grand scheme of it all, of assigning a custom URL string, i.e. a permalink, to that page equals ID number, and with the page with the ID number after it. So it took a way to put alphabetical letters to a numerical string. It also, so you know, that anytime a database or the search engine rather encounters a question mark, it is like a stop to them. Now they've gotten better at working past that, but it used to be a really quick and easy way to get a spider trapped on your website was to throw up a question mark. So that query string always has that information in it too. Hold on a minute. We may have, oh, Jim is back. So we may have that query string running around as well. So we want all of that out of there, and this is the way to smooth that out. So in most of your CMS systems, and that even though I don't like the Wix, Weebly, Web, Squarespace, those people, this actually allows you to smooth that out, correct it, put keywords in it, and structure it any way you want. I recommend nesting it and trying to keep a structure to it. Not getting that structure down is a bad thing. If you weren't going to do that, at least put everything up against the root, which again is what I still do. So, and that is intentional on my part. Sometimes I will put things like blogs, I put in the blog directory so Google clearly understands their blogs, and I don't always back them up right to the root. But for the most part, I try to keep everything so Google understands it's important to me. And if there's a substructure involved, it creates that organization that Google likes to see and understand. So permalinks are very important. Just don't cram keywords in them. Understand what you're doing and why you're doing them. So the next thing I'm going to touch on is installing an SSL certificate. And this is another thing that most people don't even think about. I've had a run here lately of websites come to me that don't have SSL certificates on them, and I'm not really sure why that is, but let's kind of talk through this for a second too. So SSL encrypts the data. So what happens is I send out the request to the website sends me back a reply and a key. Those keys have to match up on the encryption, and the data is then basically encoded in a way that if somebody was watching your connection go by, which believe me, people do, they can get specific information. Now, several years ago, Google had a fight in Europe about transmission of end user dates and trying to or end user information rather, and trying to get into websites, and people would packet sniff, and they're collecting your data so that they can aggregate it and sell it. And there was a whole big kerfluffle about it. And at the end of the day, one of the things that were said is that they were transmitting personal data in an unsecure manner. That is true, but it was data that would not be used to harm you. So there's a difference between sending your credit card, your social security number, or your medical records unencrypted versus just sending your name and the fact that maybe you shop at Macy's unencrypted. So understand that there's different levels of that. They were sending this is this person and they shop at Macy's. The way they do it now is when you go to a website, they assign you basically a number, and they know what your number is, and then they assign the attributes to it. So they take away what your identity is and keep your privacy, but they do track that information. And the way they appease the court system basically is they stronghold everybody into making their site secure. Originally, that data was designed to scramble credit cards or social security numbers or information that may or may not have some type of value to it. So I use medical information as another example of something. I personally, from the server side of my world, it requires a little extra server processing to do it. It slows things down, not horribly. I mean, we're talking nanoseconds here, but it is not as quick to connect in an unencrypted manner, or excuse me, in an encrypted manner as in an unencrypted manner. So understand that that's out there somewhere. Is it a bad idea to encrypt all the data traveling over the internet? Absolutely not. It is a really, I think it's probably, overall, it's a win for security. Should you happen to transmit a password in plain text, at least it's not going to get picked off while it's in transit. And there are places and programs that do that. Now, with all of that said, they, being Google, wanted all the websites secure. So what they did is they gave a preferential treatment to any website that encrypted their entire website. So I want to kind of talk through that just a second piece. There's another piece to this. Make sure that when you put an SSL certificate in place, that the unsecure website redirects to the secure website and that you don't keep them running in parallel. I see this mistake quite a bit. The other mistake I see quite a bit is not putting your domains in right. So what I mean by that is, I guess I'm going to have to do a little lesson here that talks about DNS. Okay. But technically, www and domain.com are two different website addresses. And the reason why is, if you think of your last name is equal to your domain name. So in my case, it would be SEO 411. Okay. In your case, it's whatever your domain is. So it's SEO411.com. Anything I put to the left of that first period before SEO 411, so www. Technically can be its own place. Sometimes you see this at work, that's like documents.mycompanyname.com. So just like the domain is your last name, anything in these subdomains, and that's what they are called, they're similar to you having children. They have your last name, but they're not exactly the same as you. So what I see the mistake, this is the mistake that I see, several different amalgamations of it, and this never should be. I see www.domain.com resolving, but not domain.com. That's common on people that use a Windows server. I don't really know why both entries aren't made. I see people using domain.com, but they don't put the entries in for www at all. So when somebody types www, it comes up and says domain not found, or it may say redirect loop. It's because instead of setting it up as a CNAME, they set it up as a 301 redirect, and they redirected it back to the root, which brings up another problem. www should always be a CNAME for the root and not a redirect. If you're going to bring it back to your home, as you go through your internet life, pick a story and stick with it. And what I mean when I say that is, anytime I write my domain, I write it as www.seo411.com. It's because then all the links and all the link credit go to the same place, and I'm not segregating them or separating them. I see more messes with this and this not being handled right than I can really even begin to count. I've got 3 more of them on my desk today that have these similar issues. So they're not secure and they're not redirected right. What that does is I'm penalized for no SSL, but I'm also penalized for not having my link profile buttoned up properly. So in both of those cases, although this sounds really nerdy, everything that I'm saying today, in both of these cases, your domain should be set up. So I think www should be a CNAME and not a redirect, so you don't create a redirect loop. And I also think that if I do secure my website, HTTPS should be either redirected if it wasn't, or HTTP should be redirected to HTTPS. The only way you can make that determination is know where most of your links in your link profile are, because the world is not smart enough to say HTTP is the same as HTTPS as far as to pass link credit. So it's a place where I see some leakage on this. I actually had this happen with USA Today. One of my customers had a USA Today link and the link was to HTTP, and they lost the link credit for it because HTTPS was not redirected right. So I thankfully I found it and fixed it, and we got a really good bump out of it. But I just, these are all those type things that these are just little tiny things, but you literally can, it will give you your coverage. So you'll click on coverage and it will tell you all about everything that has some problems. So on mine, we will look and see. It says I have 8 pages that are not found. God only knows why. They are category pages, and at some point my categories are no longer being recognized. So I'm going to have to go back and go see why I'm having trouble with the category pages and what the issue is with them. That doesn't make me too happy that the category pages are missing. So we will go figure that piece out. And again, back to my permalink structure, you can see I have category web hosting, category web development. I actually have a category structure built into it, but you can see that. So I have 8 pages that are missing. I don't really know why. I'll have to go figure that out. The other thing you can go look at is, and this one always kind of bothers me. I want everybody to understand that this is happening and that this is something that Google may or may not be doing. The actual, they've come up with a way that they're excluding pages. So they go through and if your pages are not got the right amount of content to them, they don't have the right amount of material in them, they think they're thin, they're not original, they're not a great fit, the next thing you know, they're excluding those pages, they being Google again. So you need to look at your excluded pages report and understand why you have pages excluded. So the first thing I'm going to pull up, and this is going to explain something here, is it says that it's excluded these pages because there's redirects on them. So if you start to look at them, there is an HTTP version of this page as much as there's an HTTPS version. But what I will say on this page is this page is so old, it's from January of 2012, and it's so thin that I can see them just killing this off just because it's a thin page. And I suppose if I started to look down all of these, we would find a lot of these pages were killed off just simply because they were thin. The really old pages from back in the early, like 2010, 2011 era. The other thing, if you look, is remember I was telling you the P equals on the URL string. You'll see that in some spots, I apparently have this P equals and the permalink is not showing upright. So Google, for whatever reason, was able to pick up the page ID. So what they've done is they've excluded the duplicate content, which is that page ID. Now, theoretically, I should go take that page ID and 301 redirect it back to the actual page with the permalink on it. So there's several of these pages. They're all my blog posts, so I don't think that that's the problem, or my podcast. So I don't think that's the problem. I think it's that it doesn't like the fact that it's actually rendering with the page and the ID number on it. The other thing that I can see here is a lot of the AMP pages are omitted. So I've been playing with AMP. We're going to talk about AMP again before the end of the year, because I would like everybody to be getting AMP set up on their website if it's not, and get that all working for everybody. Let's see. Let's see what the next thing is that they're giving me. Usually I find in this situation, I find older URLs that were HTTP and now are HTTPS, so they exclude the HTTP version. I'm fine with that. There's just lots of reasons, and I just like to understand why each and every one of them is excluded. And if you see, like this one here says no AMP. Now, why it says no AMP, I don't know. And again, I've been messing with the AMP on the website, so that maybe I'm causing my own problems messing around with it. See, okay, so the no AMP page redirected back to the page without the AMP. So they're not liking that, and I'm going to have to go mess around just to see if it's a problem or not. But as I go down each and every one of these, you need to go through every one of these coverage issues and go see what they're not liking, why they're upset, and if there's a fix for it. Not everything is bad. Like I said, if it's just HTTP to HTTPS and they kill off the HTTP, I'm good with them not including that in their index. I'm not good with them including a page that's a really good page of content that for some reason that they're discounting. So not that I found any of there here, but understand that that's now on the table. So we need to go through all the coverage reports and the console errors to see what the problems were. The other thing is make sure, as silly as this is going to sound, there's a setting in WordPress, if you're using WordPress, that tells Google whether you should index your site or not. And I have found places that it is turned on. And what usually happens is somebody turns on the setting. Let me show you where it is. It's under General. All right, this one, you'll see it says it's under the settings and under reading, and it says discourage search engines from indexing this site. I have seen places and people have that checked because they were working on a website. They consider it to be a development site. They don't want Google to look at it. Great. They go turn it on, and the second they turn it on, they forget to turn this off, and Google doesn't index the website. It's like a faceplant moment, but it is actually a problem, and you need to make sure. I don't ever even use this because I don't want anybody ever forgetting to turn it off. We put a password blocker right over we use the old-fashioned Apache pop-up, block it that way. You also could put a page in that could require a username and password as well. So there's different ways you can handle it, but know the settings there. Check and make sure the settings are off. That's probably the best way to start that one. The other thing is make sure that your content links are set to no follow, or your comment links rather. Now this website doesn't have any, but SEO 411 does. And I'm going to show you what I've been doing on this one because it's kind of funny. By the way, good comments matter. And actually, Jim, for you, I'm gonna ask you this, and anybody else. When you see a blog post, don't say great blog post on the blog. Go in and say, hey, thanks for this great topic on SEO tools or whatever the topic. I learned a lot. This is the tip or the trick that I learned that was not that I didn't know before. Something to make it relative to that content so it just doesn't look like plain old spam. But let's kind of go into these comment section here a second. Yeah, I need everybody. Yeah, Jim, I need you to start commenting on these posts when I put them up.
You got it. I'll do that.
But they've got to be real, not real stuff. They've got to be real. They can't be fake. So here, let's go here. This one here is a real one. This came from a real person. They said, this is the class I went to. This is the date it was. I ran this, blah, blah, blah. They actually went in. They made a link to their website, and they also put their name and their email address in. And the fact of the matter is that those kind of things help. So I get spam ones. Let me see if I have any in spam. Here's a good example. This one says, I've been following your website for a while now and finally got the bravery to go ahead and give you a shout from Huffman. Now, I know this is a spam post, but what I did was I killed off the link that they put to their own website, so they got no credit for it. And I actually gave them a real name and let that post stand, because I'm less than 3 miles from Huffman. So if you're going to give me a post and kind of give me something genuine like that, I'm going to fix this up so it looks like it came from a real person and alter it. And that's kind of what I've been doing with it. I'm taking the links off of them, I'm editing them, and then I'm letting them go back out and be live on the website. If it's really a stupid one like this one, this person sent this in. This person just made a random comment. I know it's a spam person, but I went ahead and altered it and put it out there so that it looks real. Because Google's looking for, it's like a social proof that you are doing a good job. And they're looking for those blog posts to have comments on them, but they have to be real. They can't be fake comments. They can't be comments that just say, hey, this is a great post. I've had students that have used this as a way to ask questions after the fact, that they'll actually post their question for me down in the comment section, and I come back and answer them. I love that because it allows me to add valuable content. They've added valuable content, and we've added social proof to the page that page was a real bit of information that was put out there. So everybody should concentrate on trying to get these blog comments and get them right, not to make a tangent of it. But the other thing is, make sure that your URLs are set to no follow, because you don't want to go and give credit to all these people based on their website, or including their web address. Okay. And that's a big problem. So make sure if you see them, I will say, this is from my friend John Harris at SCORE. I'm actually going to leave his there because SCORE is a big organization. And the fact that we're making the link to SCORE actually helps it from our side. So if you notice, I left the one from SCORE, but I've taken out the majority of the rest of them. So again, that's me making decisions that I know how to make. But for the most part, I would recommend getting rid of the blogs, the URLs on the spam comments, and make sure that you have them no followed. All right, the next thing is, make sure that you have a sitemap and you are submitting it to Google. That's another thing that I see horrifically not done. Where you would do that, Yoast and Rank Math both make a sitemap for you. And they basically are in their software. So let me come back to SEO 411. And this one is still running Yoast. By the way, I'm just going to say this again. I'm more and more liking Rank Math. I just have to figure out how to get it out of this website and get it over so that it doesn't. I moved it and it decimated the website. So I backed it out and put Yoast back on it. But I'm really digging Rank Math. All right, XML sitemap. So if you go here, it'll tell you, it says see the sitemap. So we'll click and it gives you the sitemap. And here's all the pages that are involved. And this is the URL that you're going to go ahead and submit, is this one here. The thing is, these all open up into other sitemaps. There's a pages sitemap. There is a product sitemap if you're running a products thing. So all of those are off of this. They fold out and open into more. Where you're going to take this, you're going to go, make sure you take it. If you look inside your Webmaster Tools, there's a button there that says sitemaps. And if you look, it takes the sitemap and you'll see that we put out 447 different URLs off my SEO 411 site. My goal is to grow that to 1,000. I think that once that hits 1,000, that's going to put us at a much more authoritative place. So, but yeah, right now I've got 447, and it takes multiple versions. If you look at, if you expand that out on your own, you'll see it tells you that we have an author's map, that we have a category sitemap, that we have 11 different categories. The SEO events are scheduled, so there's 56 of those pages that are attached. There's 100 blog posts right now. In fact, I should congratulate myself on my 100th blog post. Go me. And then there's also the pages are here somewhere, which I must have passed them up somewhere. Oh, page sitemap, there's 97 pages. So between everything, this has come up with this many, and it's come up with 447 pages. So it keeps track of it, it submits it. The other thing is, again, I try to give you guys some perspective on things. So way back in the day, there was a, you would go and you would have to go and tell Google a page was put in, and there was actually submission services. And I'll tell you, Network Solutions still charges people to do this, which I don't really know what they're charging people for, because it really doesn't exist anymore. This is how you go submit your pages to Google when you do it. So you go, you put in the sitemap, Google will go get the sitemap, they pick it up, and they enter it into their index if they think it's worthy. Bing also has the same thing, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to start talking about Bing more and more, because I'm starting to see people use it more and more. And I really think it's because Google's results are not as good as they used to be. That's just my opinion. They do a lot of trying to guess what I mean rather than reading just what I mean. There seems to be a lot of that going on. What did I put in today? I did something today, and yet again, it gave me all the wrong answers. My computer broke a few weeks ago, and my Google search was, what keys do I hit to enter safe mode on a Mac? Okay. Because I was having some trouble with it. Well, and on a Windows keyboard, mind you, I had to put that in. So when I put all of that in, all it did was tell me about safe mode. It never told me how to do it. I went and copied and pasted the search out of Google, pasted it into Bing. And the very first result said that instead of hitting one key, hit a different key, and I was off and running. So I sat there 3 hours trying to find a problem that Bing was able to find for me in 30 seconds. And it seems to be becoming more and more prevalent, because they guess at what you want rather than reading what you actually want. So in the quest to make things more intuitive, I'm not sure that they've actually made it better. I think people are finding that they're having to go to Bing more and more to come up with alternative searches. The other one I would say is probably DuckDuckGo is another one. But for right now, just go put your sitemaps in Bing as well, so Bing has a footprint on your website also. I think that's a nice addition for anybody to have that and to go do that. And I think you'll get some rewards and some wins off of that. The other thing is that I see, especially for newer sites, that Bing and Yahoo search seem to pick up the website faster, which they're all on the same back end, so don't misunderstand that comment. But they seem to, on brand new sites, I'm getting almost immediate traffic from Bing, whereas Google is kind of few and far between. So I just want everybody to be aware of that as well, that submit your sitemaps, but also don't just do it to Google, do it to Bing Webmaster Tools, which I think is Bing Webmaster Tools is what I think it is. Bing Toolbox is what it is. Let me just say that a little bit differently. So sign in. I'm signing in real quick. I think this is the account I set everything up with. The other thing you can do is you can import all your sites from Google Search Console right on into Bing directly, so you don't have to go enter them all. So just FYI, there is a quick and easy import tool that will go grab everything over for you. In my case, I've got 50 some sites that we're on that we have access to Webmaster Tools. It moved all 52, so I didn't have to go set them all up by hand. What I do have to do, though, is go make sure I have sitemaps on every one of them. So let me just throw that out there. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is structured data and markup on your homepage. And I think that's a very important thing to have. And I want to go ahead and talk about that real quickly here. Let me move this down here. Let me see where it is. I'm still in Bing really quickly here. It's some of the things are the same, some of the things are not the same. But if you go out and you go look, you'll see that it pulled over some of our sitemaps, which is interesting because I have some that date back as far as 2013 on this. I'll need to get them cleaned out and only use new ones. So it's got to start pulling some of this in under the sitemaps that I have. So, and actually, you know what we're going to do? I'm not convinced these are live. I'm thinking these might be older ones. So what I'm going to do is go here, and I am going to go and actually submit the one for SEO 411. Just because I think it needs to be done here. And just to make sure I'm getting my address right, I actually go click on where I can see it and copy it out so it's actually a direct copy and not a mistake. So I'm going to submit this, I'm going to submit this, I'm going to paste, I'm going to tell it submit, and then I'm going to kill off these old ones that are not valid. So it's processing the new one, but I'm going to delete these ones that are not valid anymore because some of these haven't been crawled since 2016 because I've had this have a webmaster's account that I haven't paid for in a gazillion years. So make sure that you're just paying attention to Bing. It's like one of those things that you just really should be on the peripheral of your vision and that you should be paying attention to. Okay. Structured data is a real bear. But what I will tell you is there's several plugins for WordPress that can be used. Let me go into SEO 411. I was working with some of this weekend. There's WP SEO schema. That's one of the plugins that you can use. And I set this one all up. I just kind of want to explain a little bit what it does. Just you have to fill out your home screen. And it'll ask you if you're a local business. It'll ask you what your price range is. It'll ask you what your social media is. So that's one of them. Now, what I like about this is the way it does it for the internal pages, and I don't have to do a lot of cutting and pasting to set it up. So that's one of the tools that you can use. The other one that I was working on this weekend, which I think actually has a better, where is it? Just saw it here. Okay, I have this schema type structured data, and I can go in this one here. I have, and I use this. It's called schema and structured data for WP and AMP. Okay. And part of the reason I got this is because I was able to set the type that I wanted per page. So it has an ad schema type, and it gives you, what are you? An apartment, a house, a hotel, a book, a course, a FAQ, this or that. It gives you 100 different things that you can ask. Like I have the one that says podcast episode, and I'm going to go ahead and use that. And what it's going to do is it's going to say when you have a post type that's equal to, and it lets me pick what post type I want. And then I'm going to put an and in. And the reason why, what I'm looking for is the one that says post type. Page post format. I'm going to have to play with this more because it's not going to do it the way I want it. But what it actually is going to end up doing is it's going to end up putting the podcast designation onto my podcast page. So it tells Google, hey, this is a podcast episode. So Google then starts to know what it's looking at. And that's an important thing. So like the class ones, I ended up going in and I told it to put a schema on the 2 class pages as events so that it could go in and tell it what it actually was. So you'll see I have an event type. It's an education event. I told it to attach reviews. The paid for version of this pulls out reviews, and I've actually had people in the class go and review the class on our Google page, which I was grateful to. So I went ahead and attached that one review to the post type. So all the classes have a 5-star review on them. So when Google sees it, it's going to say, oh, wait, a live person did a 5-star review on this class. So we've actually gone out as far as to do that. And this is all a big deal because you're sending signals to Google. So I have this one for schema. And then if you go in for this event type, and then let me see if I can figure out where the settings are. In the settings and in the reviews, you can actually tell it what you want. So you have an AMP setting, so you can tell it what's structured and what's not. We're going to start talking about AMP, and I already upgraded to Pro. It actually will take the reviews from all these places and bring out the reviews that you have. So you see what I did is I added the 2 Google Place reviews. I told it to pull in 5. It pulls in the reviews that we have off those properties now and puts that schema into our pages. So Google may be more likely when you see SEO 411 to have the 5-star review designation attached to it. Serves 2 purposes. One, it tells your customer that you're trustworthy and that you're a good person to do business with. But the other thing it does is in the search listings that everybody starts to look the same, that 5-star designation starts to help Google help you separate you from your competitors. So anything you can do to get a review schema, you should do. So I went ahead and turned on the review schema. I just did this weekend, so I don't know that I think this is something that's going to get like now in the next 5 minutes that I'm going to get something. But I eventually expect to see some type of uptick in review designations in our search results. In fact, I guess I could just check it right now. Let's see if we got it. No, I don't see it. Let's try this. No, they've given us site links, but they haven't given us reviews. Eventually, what I hope that it ends up with is a rating underneath it with 5 stars. So that would be a good thing if we were able to pull that. Let's see. The other one, so the schema can be touchy to understand what you want to do and where you want to do it. So let's come back to this plugin that I said I like to use. This one that is the WP SEO schema. The reason I like it is this. Let me go to the home page, view tree. Let me go to the home page here. I am able, with that tool, it should be down towards the bottom. Just close that. And close that. It's still trying to load. Sorry about that. My pages are this page is so big, it's like killing the RAM on the computer, if you will. I want to close this. There we go. Let's close this. And we'll close this. Where the heck is it? Oh, so all the way up here. Look at me like a dummy. I'm looking for it. Okay. So you see we have all these types on the side. So you can say if this was a blog post but this has got an FAQ on it. And you notice I was able to enable it, and I filled in my FAQ data here. So Google now knows that I have questions that says, how can I tell if my SEO company knows what they're doing? Because I think the thing is, people put that question into Google and look for answers. I think that's something that you see a lot of over time. So every page that we build will include an FAQ with it. And then this tool allows me to put that FAQ right into the page with the schema around it. So Google recognizes that there's an FAQ to it. So we may have article schema on it, which I don't have. Local business schema I do have, which just tells it we're a local business, where we're located, where our office is, what our phone number is. The other thing I need to do is probably enable the author and my author link and all of that on this for schema from that purpose. But we have a whole, I'm able to go ahead and granularize this per page. Some of the other plugins I have will do it. This one just kind of does it a little bit neater than most of them. So what schema is it's a markup language that's built into the page that tells Google, hey, this is what I think the page is about. It's what generates the movie listings that you see. The class information for us, sometimes if I look for SEO classes, and sometimes they'll pull our SEO class schedule and they'll put it there, and it's all coming off this schema because it helps Google build a better search page. So everybody should be paying attention to it. The other thing is, if you do schema right, it gives you those boxes up at the top that talk about tennis courts and some of those other things. So just know that there is that also going on, that why you should be able to do it. It's a very technical thing. It's an upper level SEO. I wouldn't expect a beginner to start to dabble into schema. But know it's out there, and know at some point you need to get somebody to come help you to do all of this, because it really does need to be done. All right. Let's see. The next thing I'm going to tell you, come on if you're coming. Come on. The next thing we're going to talk about is the breadcrumb trail. And every page should have it, and it should have it with schema on it. You should use the breadcrumb. Actually, I'm going to use this website because it has a really good breadcrumb representation. I actually kind of like what we did with this one. All right, so we have this page on and on. We come into this collections area. You notice we have the home, we have the collections. If I pick a collection, let's go into this. You'll notice it's adding the right to this string as we're doing it. If I come over here, click. So there's a breadcrumb trail that I can always use to get back to the home page. I've never been convinced users use that, but Google uses it. And going back to the whole beginning of where I talked about adding the hierarchy to it, that hierarchy also exists in that breadcrumb trail. So as you put the hierarchy together, you're actually putting the path for your end users to navigate that site and move it back and forth and all over the place. So I think the breadcrumb trail is a very important thing to have. It's an old technology, again, that actually helps users navigate the website, but more importantly helps Google navigate the website. If you set that breadcrumb trail upright, things should be nested, and their hierarchy should be very apparent on what you're doing. So there is that going on. Let's see. Let me see the next. Let me see the next thing here on my list. Optimize your 404 page. I know that sounds like a silly little thing to do, but go ahead and take the option to do that. One of the other things that I'm going to tell you to do is, if you're using WordPress, this is going to be easy. If you're not using WordPress, it's going to be a little bit harder. But Just make sure you implement a lazy loader script on your images so that things are um, that that they start to load and that there's some indication that something's going on. That lazy loader is getting pretty important these days in helping show site speed and showing time to first paint. So make sure you're using a lazy loader. The other thing, Yoast does this and Rank Math does this, but make sure that you understand what a canonical URL is, so that you're basically setting a page that is the primary page. So if I have other pages that look like it or that may duplicate it on my website, it says what the, I'm trying to think how's the best way to explain this to you, what the root page actually is. So ways that would manifest itself is I create a page and it's got some content on it. And then I create another page that has that content on it and maybe something else. So a blog page, if you will. You need to set the canonical so that Google knows what is the original copy. So even though you have a duplicate copy of that page, you're sending a signal saying why you have a duplicate set of content and why it's there. So make sure that you go in and set it. By default, I think it just sets them as canonicals. There's very few chances times that you actually have to move it, but make sure that you know what you're doing with this kind of stuff, because if you don't, this is like one of those little 1,000 cut things that'll kill you. Let's see. Now, it's not here yet per se, but Google has added a function that they're calling Core Web Vitals. And we'll be talking about this between now and the end of the year, because I think sometime in 2021, they're going to go live with this. So let me show you what this is and why we care. So in the Webmaster Tools, you will notice, let me see where the heck it is. Core Web Vitals have been added to it. And what it does is it tells you about your page and whether it's good or whether it's bad or whether you're fast. I know it sounds like an oversimplification, but you'll see what it does. So if I open the report, it gives me the pages that are slow and the pages that I need to pay attention to, or the pages that need improvement. Now I know that like the SEO Home 411 homepage has a problem because it has that image on the top of it. So I know it's going to be on desktops. It's going to always get a little bit of a problem. So here on the 17th, they said I had 31 poor URLs. Now remember, we said we had 447. They came back and said they think 31 of them, there was something wrong with them. So I can come here and I can look and I can see what those pages were, and what we need to do. So that's another thing we need to do. And it's site speed, it's usability, it's whether you have AMP, whether your AMP is working right. And I don't think my AMP was working right. I think I'm still having to mess around with it, because I still don't think I have it right. I have the breadcrumbs. Are the breadcrumbs there? Are they valid? Do I have good schema around them? On my events page, do I have events? It says I'm missing a location. It's kind of funny. The reason I'm missing a location is because we don't have a location because we're in a pandemic. So that's part of the problem with the missing locations, is the fact that, yeah, it's not happening because we don't have a home until this pandemic thing is over. If you notice, it comes down, it gives me all the valid pages. It finds for any of the FAQs that I have. And you notice, remember I showed you the FAQ page? Well, now all of a sudden I'm back and it's looking at it on the FAQ page. And this is going to be good because I didn't come back and look at this yet. The review snippets, let's see what it says. What it says is wrong with it. See, I just put this in and it, for some reason it put it on the appointment booking page. I guess it just felt like it wanted to do that, but I'll have to go figure out. But it's complaining that it doesn't like something about the reviews on those on the bookings page. So it gives me all the schema, all the things that they're looking for, and all the things that are a problem. Videos. I only have one page with videos on them, which is the page for the class that has all the videos embedded into them. So it seems like it's telling me there's one problem on a thumbnail, and you see it's on this page that is the Internet Marketing Clinic. So I can walk through all these over here on these Core Web Vitals and come up with all the things that I need to go deal with and go fix and make right to get everything in tip-top shape. But those Core Web Vitals, we're going to be talking about them because they're really about speed and how fast your site loads and how do people interact with the pages, and are they good pages and are they bad pages, and what's happening here and what's happening there. And you know, it's funny, one day I have 31 good URLs, the next day I have 31 bad URLs, and all I did was go to bed and wake up the next day. So you know, there's a whole lot of things like this one here. It gave me a poor because it says that, you know, it's more than 4 seconds for that page to load. You know, it is what it is. And it says longest colorful paint. How long does it take to do layout shift? So one of the things they're trying to stop is like when you load it on a phone and it starts to load, and then when it's all done loading, the page jumps, so you end up clicking on the wrong link. So that's another thing that they're looking at that they want addressed and want to be fixed. So on and on and on, what they're changing is, but we've got to stay with it. So what they say, and this is just their thought process on it, is that a 1 second delay can cost you 20% on your conversions. So if your website's slow and people walk off, they're thinking that 20% of the people may hit that, and it may just go away just because, simply because your site was too slow. There are some plugins to fix it. I'm experimenting with some of the ones on the SEO site, so I will report back on that at a later date. The other thing is, and I'm going to tell you, WordPress has done a great job of late of compressing photos as part of its native core. What it basically does is it utilizes some server technology. So your hosting company has to have the technologies turned on. But I've noticed that I can take a really large photo, upload it, it immediately cuts it and compresses it on upload. And then if I resize it after it's uploaded, it cuts the file size down dramatically. So make sure that you're understanding the file sizes that you're putting there and that you're scaling the images and not just uploading them blindly and going from there and going on. The next thing, I guess, you know what? We're going to do on-page SEO, but I'm going to go ahead and stop because it's just between this hurricane and all the strange things that are going on. It's just Gemini today. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do on-page SEO next time. We're going to start talking about that and how to put that together and what to do. So this next time, the next class coming up that I do at the 4th Wednesday in September, we're going to do on-page SEO as a continuation of this. And that will kind of start to keep these together. So with that, I'm going to tell everybody have a very happy Wednesday. Stay safe because I'm looking out my window and I have a hurricane heading right at us. So, it's probably a good time to get signed off. But with that all said, have a good couple weeks, and we'll see you back the first Monday in September, if you can believe I'm saying that, with another class topic. I haven't decided what they all are yet for September, but I know we're going to be covering social media for sure. And I think what I may do is content planning. So we've got some really good topics coming up for September, and I hope to see you all then. Thank you and have a good day.